So what is this configuration management? So we finished our requirements gathering phase. Then we moved to design. We learned a lot of things in design, data design, UI design, architectural design, and modular design. We went in for UML modeling, and we are now ready with our designs. ER models are also ready. Next phase is the implementation phase, coding phase. So in the coding phase, what we are going to do is we are going to go and implement whatever that we have designed. So we are just going to write code here, and in the coding phase, we have to learn a lot of things. And we are going to talk about configuration management for our code in today's class. So what is this configuration management? Let me take an example here. Implement code to add and subtract two numbers in Java. So the user should be given the flexibility of adding two numbers and subtracting two numbers using your code. Very simple example I have taken here, and you can go ahead and implement this in Java, and say let us consider this to be the code I have written, and this code uses a package Satish Math. This package contains the class which is having the methods for subtracting and addition. So I am going to import this package and call these methods. So I am writing it as a package so that I can reuse across many projects. So I'm just importing this package Satish Math. This is the class in this package Satish, and what this package contains: methods for subtracting and summing. So users, when they give two numbers, it will return the result. So I'm just printing the result. Very simple piece of code for addition and subtraction. So when this code is implemented, it is already done. What we call that code to be, right? The final code or the baseline code. Okay, I am ready with my project. I've done the code. That is called the baseline code. I've implemented it on the server. It's running. So all the users can connect to the server and use my code. So you're seeing here, maybe this user uses addition, this user uses multiplication, again addition, or subtraction and addition. So they are using. So it's on the server. Everybody is using this live baseline code that we have finally agreed upon. So now, what are the two functionalities supported by this code? Subtract and addition and subtraction. Suppose there are two users who come out with certain needs. Okay, this user needs multiplication also, and this user needs division. So one user is looking for another functionality, that is add-on functionality called multiplication. Another user needs another function called division. They are in need of these things, so they go and tell their teams that they need these two things. So what should be the case then? How to add these additional changes to the code? So you are seeing here that this code is running on the server being used by people, real people, right? And now you have to go and modify this code. What modifications you have to do? For one person you have to add multiplication, and another person requests division also as an additional function. So in this case, how can you go and modify the code on the server? Obviously, we cannot allow people to directly go and change the code running on the server. There should be some other process behind that. So what is the process? Say this is the code Satish Math class having the two functions for addition and subtraction. So one user wants multiplication to be added, another user wants division to be added. So we give this task to two engineers. Engineer A will be working on adding multiplication code. Engineer B will be working on adding division code to this centralized repository. So how this is going to happen? We will consider this scenario. They are working in distributed locations. Say you consider this guy to be working in US, this guy to be working in India. They are totally unaware of the requests that has come from clients. He has been asked to just add multiplication. He has been asked to add division. So now what they will do is they can't just go and directly change the code that is running. So what they have to do is they have to make a copy of the code and change. So they will copy this code to their local laptops. Say they are working on some desktop or laptop. They will copy that code. They will just check out. You call that to be checkout. Or you just think of copying that code to their laptops from the server. So they make a copy. Say this guy in US makes a copy to his laptop. This guy in India makes a copy to his laptop. So what copy they are going to get? This copy. And next, what they are going to do? This guy should add the multiplication function. So he goes and adds the multiplication function you see here. He's just multiplying two numbers. He has the multiplication function. So he's done with his code changes. And this guy maybe he's a lazy guy. He's taking some time to work on the code changes. But he has copied that code already from the server. Now this guy engineer A finished his changes, right? So what he is going to do is he will just check in. You can call that to be check in. Or he moves the changes to the server. So what are the changes? Multiplication function is getting added to the server. So now all the real people will be starting using this multiplication function. So everybody is happy with the multiplication function. So this guy comes back after some time, he changes his code now. So when he changes his code, what he's going to add? He is going to add the division function. To which code he is adding the division function? The old code that he has copied to his laptop. And now he has finished his changes, and these guys are distributed in distributed teams, one in US, one in India, and the code is of larger scale. They are working parallelly. So after finishing his changes, this guy what he does is he checks in. Checks in the sense pushes his changes to the server. So when he pushes the changes to the server, what will happen? Will there be any issue for the people using the code? Is there this multiplication function available now? No. What this user has done is, he has just overwritten whatever changes this person has made. Unknowingly he has done that. He just copied it, he made the changes. When he pushed it, he has just overwritten the changes. So a multiplication function is gone. So the users who are using multiplication function, they are really very worried now. What happened? All of a sudden my function is gone. So this is the serious issue when multiple teams are going to work on one application, centralized application, on a centralized repository, and these teams are almost distributed. I mean, you can think of code for Ford or Cummins engines. There will be like lot of branches across the globe, and there's a lot of code. And many engineers, maintenance engineers in distributed teams are maintaining the code. So there is always a chance that one person can overwrite the changes of the another person. So this is a very happening problem. I mean, this is a problem that is bound to happen. So how can you fix this? I don't even know there's an engineer there, copied that code, he has changed it, he is pushing it. So how can you fix this problem? So there comes in this process called configuration management. So what this process says is, code changes to a centralized repository by multiple teams should be controlled. It's not that everybody goes and changes everything there. We should know who is changing what, who is writing what to the code. That should be tracked. So this is very important. Who is changing what, or who is adding? See, sometimes I can add new classes. Who is that person? What time he has added and what he has added. That should be tracked. And revisions of the changes should be maintained. What do you mean by revisions of the changes? Do you see here revisions of the changes? Initially I had only sum and subtraction, that is version 1 we'll consider. Later on I added multiplication, that can be version 2. Later on finally division was added, that is version 3. So I should maintain the revisions, the changes as 3 different versions in my system. Why it is needed? Why do you think code revision should be maintained? See, one of the major things is when I maintain revisions, I will know what has been added in this revision. I can show the difference. Okay, that was the earlier revision, this revision. What is the difference of the code? How many lines of code, what code was added? The next thing is, say, this user pushed a revision 3.0 to the server, and then some issues happened. That code banged on the server. Say, it went down, the system crashed. So immediately we have to bring back our system. So what we can do is, we can very well go back to the previous revision that was running fine. We can just run our system with the previous revision until we fix the problems with the third revision. So to bring back our systems immediately in case of any issues, then we also need versions to be maintained. So this kind of a process is called configuration management. Is nothing but is defined as the process to control the changes to the code. Who is changing what, when is changing, what has been added, when it was added, and what are the various revisions that has happened. It's not only on the code, it can also be on the design documentation, it can be on any deliverable that you do. there can always be revisions maintained. In requirement specification, we maintain revisions using Bittrex 24. So every time you make some changes, there will be revision added. So that is also coming under configuration management. But in the industry, it's always difficult to maintain revisions for documentation. They maintain revisions for code. So we look at, okay, we know the issues, we know what is this process. And we also looked at this one particular issue, right? One person overwriting the other person's work. How can you prevent this? I'll talk about the changes. Two changes are there: lock, modify, unlock, copy, modify, merge. So very simple. When it comes to lock, modify, unlock, what it means is this guy, he has been asked to work on multiplication. So what he does is he goes and checks out. What is checking out? Making a copy of the production code to your local laptop. When he checks out, the production code will be locked for other engineers. So they will get a message that it has been locked. So this guy, when he tries to check out simultaneously, what will happen is it will say this has been locked by engineer A. It will give that message to him. He cannot make a copy of that code. Till this guy finishes the changes and moves it back, this guy should wait, or he should call him. Maybe he knows which engineer is that, his phone number is available, what you are working on. So that is locking the things and unlocking. So once when he makes the changes, say when he pushes the changes back, then what will happen is code is getting unlocked. So now his changes are there, it is unlocked, and engineer B, now he can go and make a copy of this code. So once when he makes a copy, again what will happen to this code? Locked. Because when you are changing a particular part of the code, say a class, you are going to lock that class. Anybody who wants to copy that, they will get this message that is locked by this engineer in this location. So they have to work. But there is one problem with this. Parallelly, we cannot make engineers work. A team should wait on others to fix. So this can be overcome by another strategy: copy, modify, merge. So what copy, modify, merge version control strategy says is, we'll allow them to check out. Both of them are checking out. They are working on the code. So engineer A makes the changes first. And what he does is, and engineer B also is making the changes, but engineer A moves the code first to the production server. Next, what should happen? Engineer B should move his code, right? Now you know multiplication is not part of engineer B's code. So what you should do actually is, when he tries to move it, you should first check whether there are any changes to the code on the server, whether anyone else has changed it. So he knows that multiplication has been pushed in. So there is a change in the code that he has copied. So what he has to do is, he has to merge these changes. He has to merge these changes to his code, and then he has to push in that code. So he will merge the multiplication change, he will add the division change, and then he will push in that code. So you understand what is merge and copy? Before pushing the changes, I will check whether anybody else has changed anything. Then I will pull those changes, merge it with my local copy. Then I will push my code with all the changes back. So this is called, what this technique is called? This technique, we have to go with the name: copy, modify. While you're pushing it, merge it. So obviously we cannot do all these things manually, looking at who has changed what by reading the code in a centralized repository. We need some kind of tools to manage all these things. How to know who has changed what in this code, who has added what to this code. So we need some tools, and for that today we are going to look at a very, very famous tool. You might have heard, many of you might be using this, GitHub, which is an open source free repository for storing, managing, configuration management of the code. So it's a very important concept. You go and work on projects, you're going to use GitHub. Not only GitHub is one of the tools we have. When you talk about companies, they'll use their own proprietary configuration management tools. which they will have in the industry. They will use it for checking in, checking out, merge, copy, or locking the code. So we are going to see GitHub, which is freely available to us. So what is this GitHub and how we are going to use that? So the very first thing, if you want to use GitHub, you go to github.com and then you sign up for an account. All those students who don't have an account, today after this class, you go to github.com, you just click on sign up. You need to have an account. You should be a user for GitHub, and you create an account. It will ask you for username, password, email address, and then it's just asking for some verification. You just click on that, your account gets created, and it says 2 plans. Of course, we'll always go with the free plans. So $0, choose free. Say this is like the only difference is when you are having repositories, it can be public or private. So when you go in for private repositories, you can, it's not visible to all the public. So you can manage how many collaborators can work on that repository. So there is no limitation on the collaborators for private repositories in this enterprise plan. Whereas we are going to have our repository as a public repository wherein everyone can look at our code. So we'll go with this free plan. Okay, so it asks you why are you using GitHub, are you a teacher, student, and things like that. Just fill that basic info. Yeah, your account is created. Obviously, you'll get an email verification, I guess. Go and verify your emails. So once when that is done, your account is created as a user, you are done. But for us, what I have planned is, each team is working on a project and all the 10 members are working on one particular project. So all your code will be like overlapping with each other's code. So we are going to create a repository for each team. So I'm going to put up a repository for each team. Say bank collection management can use that collection management repository. Jewel collection management can go with a different repository. Or can we have one repository for all the 6 teams? What is this repository? Where your code will be on the server. That's it. So we have 6 teams developing code. Can I have just one repository? Put all your code there. Or do you want 6 different repositories for 6 different teams? Yeah, you are very smart. The thing is, if you have everything together, I know it will be a lot of issues coming up, each one fighting with each other. So I love 6 different repositories for each team. So how will I go and create a repository? I just go and give the repository name here, select it as public, create repository. That's it. So repository gets created. So once when this repository gets created, I'll have this URL. I am going to be the owner of the repository. I am going to create the repository, share the URL with you. So you're going to use this URL in your Eclipse to submit code to your repositories. So what this URL is, this will be used by all the teams. 6 different URLs will be given to 6 different teams, and they are going to submit code to this repository. And let me go and create a repository and show you how it works in GitHub. Let's start working on things. Have you understood what is this repository? Let me again explain that alone. A repository is nothing but a location on the server. It's on the server. And I am going to give a name to this. For instance, I will say I love class demo to be the repository name. And I'll add collaborators. Collaborators are people who can add or share or do something to this code on the server. So all the 10 members will be added as what? Collaborators. To be a collaborator, you should hold a GitHub account. You should have a username in GitHub. So I'll be getting the usernames and adding you as collaborators for the repository. Once when you're added as collaborators, you can go and check in your code to the repository. So this repository will be on the server, and every time anyone wants to view the code, he can know what every other member is working on. So how to create this repository, that's what I wanted to show you. Let me show the demo. Okay, how to go and create a repository. You just go and say you can also have all your other projects in GitHub. So you can go and start a project. You give the repository name. Say I'll give class demo to be the repository name. Since I'm doing a class demo, just class demo. Just showing demo to the class as the description. And here public. So everyone on GitHub can view this repository, and then create repository. That's it. So your repository gets created, and this URL, this is what I'm going to share with you. you're going to connect to this repository, right? So I'm going to just share this, copy this URL. So my repository is done, it's created. Now the next thing is how you guys are going to work with code. You're going to work in Java code, Java JSP, right? So you're going to use Eclipse for your coding, and you'll be working using your laptops. So let's open Eclipse. So this will be your interface, Eclipse. You're done. And now what we have to do is we have to say you're coding something. Let's open a new project. New project. Say you started some code for a project. So it's a Java project. Let's start from the basics. We'll give the project name as class demo. Any name, but I give class demo here, of course. And then I'll finish this. Yeah. So here's the class demo project, and I'm just going to go and add a source file, a class file here. How to add a class file? Let's go and create, right click, new class. So we'll all use Eclipse for our Java code. That's the concept here. So you go to new and then you select a class. You're just going to create a class file here, and the class name is, say, calculator, something like that, and finish. So this is how I start my project, any project, right? So your calculator class is ready, and I am, as a user, I am just writing some code here, say public void display, some code I can write, and just say we'll give a sysout, and then we'll just say hello, hello from user 1. I call myself as user 1 here. Yes. My system is dead slow because of so many databases and clusters running inside it. I'm very sorry for that, but anyway. So I am done with my project. So this is a very simple save all I'm giving. My project is class demo. Now, as a student, I should be submitting my code to the GitHub repository. How to go and submit that? You have to go and open the Git perspective. So you can just go and click on Git here. So you're going to get all the Git repositories. This window will pop up. And then what you have to do is you have to click on clone a Git repository. So you're going to clone it, like you're going to connect to the Git repository on the server. And now here comes, it just asks you for the URL to where it needs to connect. So obviously I have shared you the URL, right? So you can just go and connect to it. It's already that URL here. Give that URL, and then it asks you for the username and password for your GitHub account. So you, as a user, you should give your GitHub username and password. So I am going to give Satish, CJ Satish VIT, and my password. Say it says GitHub repository is empty because I created the repository. There's nothing there on the server. So you give click next, and then you finish. So you see here, class demo repository got added to your Eclipse view. What this means is there is a local space allocated in your laptop by name class demo. So there is some workspace allocated here. So from the server, when you're going to copy some code, that code will come to your local workspace. So you call that to be the workspace. Let me again explain what is this GitHub repository shown on my Eclipse window. For newcomers, it may be a little tough. So let me explain that. It's a very simple diagram here. So you have the server, code here on the GitHub server, and then you create a workspace. So you create a repository or a workspace in your laptop. So that is the local GitHub repository. You call that to be a local repository. So whenever I am cloning, what will happen is the code in the server will be copied to your local. So this is your laptop. And you can make any changes to the code here. And then what you have to do is you have to commit or push the changes to the server. So from where it will push the changes? from the local, it will push the changes to the server. So now what I have done is I've just cloned this server code. There is nothing in the server, so it's an empty piece of thing. So I've just cloned it. Next thing is, what is my project I'm working on? If you go to the project window, it is the class demo project I'm working on. This project should be moved to your local workspace. So how will you move to the local workspace? Just right click on the project package explorer, right click, and then you go to team, and then you go to share project. And then it will ask you to which repository you're going to add this. The local repository name is class demo. So I'm going to add that, then I say finish. So what Eclipse is doing is, from the workspace of Eclipse where this project is stored, it's moving to the local Git repository on your laptops. So now that project got added here. When you go to the Git repository and check, you can see all that is getting added. Is that clear? So you come down, you can see unstaged changes. When you add this project to the local repository, it very well says, what do you mean by unstaged changes? These changes are not part of your server code. It says these changes are not on your server. So you have to commit these changes to the server. So how can you commit these changes to the server? Just select all that project code that's shown here. Drag it to stage changes. And then you can give a commit message. Like when you're moving something to the server, what you're adding. Say 10 members will be adding code to the server. Every time you add something, you say what changes you're making. For instance, I'm saying adding calculator function or class. This is very important. You give a comment, and then next is, who is the author? Who is the user who is actually pushing this code? For that, you have to go and give your username and author and committer. So who is the author here? CJ Satish BIT. This format you have to give. Your name in angular brackets, the email ID, and who is the committer? Again, it is the same person, CJ Satish BIT. So what it's going to do is, from the local workspace, it's going to push this code to the server. So let's go and commit and push. So it says the code on the server is on the main branch called the master. Master holds the main piece of code. From there, you can branch out. In the sense, you can copy that to a local space. You can make the changes, and then you have to again flush the changes to the master. Okay. So here it says branch master, and then adding calculator class. Next, and then you just again it asks for the authentication. Who is pushing this? Give your GitHub username and password. Satish BIT, and then password I give. And then you just do OK. And then finish. Again it asks, let me you have to get a push confirmation. Yeah, it says push to this particular server. So where this code was pushed from your Eclipse, from your local machine, it got pushed. We have to go and check our server. Where the server is, yeah, this is the server, and where the repository is, the class demo is the repository. Let me go and check whether my code really got pushed there. It says one commit, and you have the class demo files here on the server, and it also gives you very well who committed that. CJ Satish BIT adding calculator class on which date, 1 minute ago, and you can see all the source files here. So there was one commit. So calculator Java was committed. So you can see the code very well on the server. So that is one particular change I have pushed to the server. So like that, all of you can simultaneously push your changes to the server. Say if I go and make more changes to my code, say I just go to calculator.java. Again, I'm working on Eclipse, right? I can make some more changes. I can say again system.out.println. I'm making more changes here. Yeah. And say more changes. Now I have made more changes to the code. How to go and push these changes? Let me go and save this. When I save this, you see immediately on the stage changes, it just pushes that file which got changed. So this is the file that I have to move to my server. So what I'm going to do is just move this stage changes to the, just move that file alone here, and what I'm going to do here, added a print statement, something like that. So as a user, I'm just committing another change, and who is the user here? Let's go with the user cjsatishvit@gmail.com, and commit and push, that's it. So now it's going to store this as a separate version on the server, and it's going to show who has committed when. So again, we have to give this credentials is very important. It just says pushed, that's it. Now we'll go and check our class demo. This is on the server, whether that change got, it says 2 commits. What are those 2 commits? We can go and see who has committed. 2 commits, who has done that. Says the user CJ Satish has committed 2 times, and you can also go and view the changes that he has made, the code changes, the difference. So if you go and see, it very well shows what has been changed. So this is one addition. Likewise, I can also see the previous versions of the code. So where is the previous version? You can see all the versions of the changes. For instance, 2 commits. What are those 2 commits? Let me go and see. This is one commit. This is one version. This is another version of the code, and who has committed when. So once when you link to the GitHub repository, you're going to simultaneously work on the Eclipse. Just push the changes. Finally, you bring your laptop, run your Eclipse code. It should work fine. That's the demo.